Thank you, Modern School. Thank you, students. Thank you, faculty, for having me here. It's a pleasure always to be in the midst of young people with young ideas. My curriculum vitae, as read out by the impresario of the show, would have made it evident to you that I am quite an ancient piece of journalism, I am pretty old, but, we are in the kind of profession where the seasoning happens with the passage of years, as in the case of a fine wine or a fine piece of timber. And I feel that it is our responsibility to interact with the generation that is going to take over sooner than later the reins of this country, our society, and our profession as well. Even in journalism, young faces are coming. But that preamble, I think I shouldn't lengthen it because I have limited time at my disposal. Today's theme is what? Never say never. It's a given, for any human being who has that tenacity of purpose, who is clear in his head as to what he wants to achieve and through what means. Means are important because means should be fair and the objective should be laudable. You may want to become something, your parents may say no, you become something else. They are wrong when they stop you from becoming something which you want to. They shouldn't be imposing their choices on you. That era, that age is gone. Our children are exposed to so much of information from countless platforms on the internet and in the virtual world. They are pretty well informed. There is an old Urdu saying, there are in fact two sayings, One is that गिरते हैं शाह सवार ही मैदान जंग में वो तिफ्ल क्या गिरेगा जो घुटनों के बल चले. Only those who ride or walk majestically to the battlefield stumble while they are at war. Not men who are on their knees already like the toddlers or like a little kid. And there is another Urdu saying, हिम्मत मर्दां मदद खुदा. जिसमें हिम्मत है उसके साथ ईश्वर है, उसके साथ खुदा है, उसके साथ बाबा नानक है, ईसा मसीह है. Never ever lose hope in yourself. Trust yourself. In 1984, and some of the examples I am going to give might predate your date of birth, but bear with me because as I told you, I am ancient. Some of my stories are old, but they haven't lost meaning. They are still relevant to our times, especially to the generation that is coming up and that is having certain things easy in many ways. In 1984, I was in Gwalior and I was following the campaign of a politician whom I rate as a statesman, though he belonged to a political party with whose ideology I don't agree. I disagree. His name is Atal Bihari Vajpayee. In 84, when the ballots were cast already, I went to him at his dera. Dera means his local camp office. It was late in the night, must have been about 11 o'clock or so, and he was about to retire for the day. I asked him, I said, क्या अटल जी क्या होगा? And he says, अब तो डब्बे में बंद है किस्मत हमारी. ऐसे ही बात करते थे वो. उन दिनों डब्बे में बंद होती थी, ईवीएम में नहीं होती थी. तो रायसीना रोड पर उनका घर था. मैं फिर चला गया वहाँ. मैंने कहा जी अब तो निश्चित हो गया कि आप नहीं जीते. Arey bhai, I have just lost a battle, the war is on. And the same very man became Prime Minister for 13 days in 1996, 13 months in 98, and for a full term in 1999. Because he did not give up. He kept at it. And he made a good Prime Minister. May I make his story a little longer, though I don't want to keep it Atalji-centric. That I saw him very closely during his failed efforts to make peace with a hostile country next to this district across the border. And I was there at Minare, Pakistan with him. I didn't go with him. I was there when he arrived there. He came by a helicopter, and his shadow minister from the Pakistani side was a journalist, Mushahid Hussain. In any case, he was there at Minare, Pakistan, and he saw me. You know, when before that I was posted in Pakistan. I was until 94 in Pakistan, and this is about 1998. So he saw me and he waved at me, and I could get into his ring round, as they call it, ring round, immediate security, the proximate security of the person, the VVIP. You could get into that because he asked me in. And he asked me, partner, kya chal raha hai? He used to call me a Pakistani jocularly. I said, to kamal ho gaya Atalji. Minare Pakistan, memorial to the Pakistan movement, वहाँ पर अखंड भारत की पार्टी वाला प्रधानमंत्री आ गया, ये तो गजब हो गया. और ये लोग तो कहते थे कि उन लोगों से क्या बात करें जो हमारा वजूद मानने को तैयार नहीं है. तो बात अगर यही है तो कुछ तफसील से कहना पड़ेगा. I am not for a moment suggesting that he went by my advice. It would be very pretentious on my part, because the same evening that the speech he delivered on the governor's house, in the governor's house, flanked by the Sharif brothers, governor's house, Lahore, was a masterpiece in oratory and a piece of history. He said, आज सुबह जब मैं मीनारे पाकिस्तान जा रहा था तो मेरे एक पार्टी के सहयोगी ने मुझसे कहा कि आप वहाँ ना जाएं. मैंने कहा क्यों ना जाएं? उन्होंने कहा अगर आप वहाँ जाएंगे तो पाकिस्तान पे आपकी मोहर लग जाएगी. मैंने कहा अजीब बात है, पाकिस्तान को मेरी मोहर की क्या ज़रूरत है? पाकिस्तान की अपनी मोहर है जो चल रही है. Now, a man of his weight and his ideological background saying this, it bowled over entirely a very, very communal elite of Lahore. They were totally bowled over by his disarming ways. He did that. He came back and he was stabbed in the back through the Kargil war by Musharraf. Yet he called Musharraf for a summit at Lahore. The summit failed. And yet, in 2004, he went again to Pakistan and finally got from Musharraf what India needed by way of an acceptance, that their territory was being used against us for terrorism. You may look back and say, where does that accord stand today? No, it is relevant still and it stands there. And it will be useful whenever the occasion arises to normalize relations with them if they mend their ways. What this episode brings out is his tenacity of purpose, his belief in self, and the clarity of mind कि हम दोस्त तो चुन सकते हैं, हम साए नहीं चुनते. I get impressed when later Mushahid Hussain tells me, during one of our meetings much after this visit to Lahore, he said, I was with him in the helicopter which took him to the Minar-e-Pakistan, and I asked him, you are taking a big risk politically. And he said, politics without taking risk towards a future which you are convinced is brighter is the politics that we worth pursuing. अगर किसी रिस्क से हम डर गए, किसी नुकसान से डर गए, तो फिर राजनीति नहीं करनी पड़ेगी. प्रॉब्लम होगी, लेकिन वो देख लेंगे. प्रॉब्लम नहीं हुई उनको, कोई प्रॉब्लम नहीं हुई अपनी पार्टी की तरफ से. Some of the best known writers of their time faced rejection, but finally, when they got acceptance, they got recognition, they got celebrity, and they got, what should I say? They became immortal through their works. The short point is that many things you can achieve, maybe not yourself, but by helping others, by becoming a cause, becoming a catalyst for that. You know, there are two personal episodes which have moved me no end and which have been great lessons of not giving up. I had known a person who was a very formidable journalist, a writer, and who lost his 21-year-old son in a road accident. And he was crestfallen, he was devastated as a father. That was his only son. But that person returned to his job in a fortnight's time. So when people asked him that how could he manage that, to which he replied, I want to live a life the way my son would have wanted me to live a life. In the same way, and you are young people, all of us have been through our sophomoric years, our adolescence, and adolescence can be deeply infatuating, and that many a times leads to heartbreaks. And I know of a person who, for being jobless, failed to marry someone he wanted to desperately. And that one jobless youth, after sending off some person he greatly loved, so to speak, he merged himself in work so much, not out of defeat, but to turn defeat into a victory. That he today is a very formidably established professional in my own profession. But I want to just tell you that गिरते हैं शाह सवार ही मैदान जंग में, वो तिफल क्या गिरेगा जो घुटनों के बल चले. और आखिरी कहानी है देवे गौड़ा की, कि देवे गौड़ा जो थे वो प्रधानमंत्री बनने वाले थे. तो मतलब वो रेस में थे, बड़े लोग रेस में थे. ये भी 96 की बात है. तो 96 में एक दिन दोपहर में मैं चला गया. मैं पहली बार अपनी बात कर रहा हूँ, क्योंकि ये जो मैं बताऊंगा आपको वो फर्स्ट पर्सन है. मैं ये जो उसने मुझे कहा और मैं उससे जो पूछा, तो मैंने कहा गौड़ा गारू आप कैसे बन जाएंगे, आपकी पार्टी छोटी सी है, आप कर्नाटक के मुख्यमंत्री हैं, how can you be prime minister, and that too with the backing of the Congress, they will topple you any time. Wiped his hands and he said, if it's written here, nobody can stop it. And lo and behold, next morning, in the evening in fact, the next day, he called on the President of India, and we were outside the gate expecting him to say a few words, but he sped by and we started running our cars after him. Those were different days, we could do it. Now it is very difficult. So he stopped his car at the Andhra Bhavan CM suite, where Chandrababu Naidu, at that time the convener of the United Front, was there. And he stood on the footrest of the car, and my misfortune, I was ahead in the crowd, it was a huge crowd. And he took that letter and he flaunted it in my face. He didn't say anything, but I got the message. Your destiny, you can make your destiny with your efforts. Many people believe that if they have something in their destiny, they are bound to get it. But I think that you have to make efforts to achieve your objectives, and Devegowda did. And he became the Prime Minister of this country. Maybe for a short period, but he nevertheless is the Prime Minister of this country. These are some of the episodes which have inspired me no end. There are many more. I would just tell you, students, never give up. क्योंकि हिम्मत मर्दां मदद खुदा, ईश्वर उन्हीं की मदद करता है जो अपनी मदद करते हैं खुद. Don't sit on your hands. Don't lose hope ever. Because जैसे कहते हैं ना कि उम्मीद पे दुनिया जीती है. अगर आप नाउम्मीद हो गए, तो I think that you are not being fair to a beautiful life you have had. And every chapter of that life, where the protagonist will change except you, you will be the sole thread through that book. That protagonist will teach you, leave you with some thought, teach you something by way of a downside or an upside. Imbibe all that, those experiences, those relative truths of other people, and based on that, your own relative truths, to create a journey, a truthful, honest, and a fruitful journey. Thank you so much.